Now for a roundup of today's main stories from home and abroad, it's News 2 with Sharon Di Violon.
Legalising cannabis, Garda Commissioner says it should be considered for medical reasons. Northern peace process in disarray after IRA withdraws plans for putting weapons beyond use. And 2 men from Carlow are among 3 people killed on Ireland's roads today. Hello there, later Eamon has the sport, including the Irish team to play Croatia tomorrow. But we begin with the fresh debate on legalising cannabis. The man who sparked it is the country's top Garda. Commissioner Pat Byrne said tonight that decriminalising cannabis should now be considered in cases where there is a genuine medical need. However, he insisted the medical issue should not be used as a stalking horse by those who would like to see cannabis legalised. From Donegal, here's Paul Reynolds.
This latest fighting between ethnic Albanian rebels and government forces broke out just outside the capital Skopje, close to where 8 soldiers were killed by landmine blasts on Friday. It came after further fighting last night in the northern Macedonian town of Radusa, where Macedonian forces used helicopter gunships in clashes with rebels. Macedonia's government accused rebels from Kosovo of taking part in the fighting.
All of them are coming into Macedonia.
Well, we appear to have the Gremlins in studio tonight. We'll return to that story by Paul Reynolds if we can later in the bulletin. Now, moving on, the Northern peace process suffered a major setback today when the IRA withdrew its plans for putting its weapons beyond use. The organisation said the conditions did not exist to advance its proposal on decommissioning. The Taoiseach expressed disappointment. The news came as the 3 men believed to be IRA members detained in Colombia were positively identified. They're alleged to have been helping Marxist guerrillas in the country. Gardaí have confirmed the 3 were known to them. Just days after agreeing a scheme with John de Chastelain's decommissioning body, the historic offer to put IRA weapons completely and verifiably beyond use was withdrawn. Citing opposition by the Ulster Unionists to the offer, the IRA claimed that conditions no longer existed to put words into action. Secretary of State Dr. John Reid said the hasty withdrawal of the proposal would only play into the hands of IRA sceptics. Senior Republicans, however, wasted no time in laying the blame elsewhere.
The British government's response to the refusal of the Unionists to work with political institutions is an example of political failure, and it is no way to develop a peace process.
Describing the decommissioning offer as a 5-day wonder and its retraction as a cynical publicity stunt, Unionists said the move was an attempt to disguise a separate agenda.
This is a piece now of tactical manoeuvring, perhaps bad temper and petulance when you don't get your own way, but it could also be an effort to put the Secretary of State under pressure, and it could also be an effort to try and pressurise us all into elections.
The IRA announcement coincides with the arrest and detention of 3 men believed to be members of the IRA in Colombia. Gardaí say the 3 are known to them. They're alleged to have been training anti-government rebels on new bomb-making techniques. 2 of the 3 were identified as Martin McCauley from County Armagh, James Monaghan from County Donegal and David Bracken, whose real identity has yet to be established.
Can we really be asked in Northern Ireland to have in government people who are in an organisation that at the same time is prepared to go over to Colombia and sit down with a Marxist, drug-dealing terrorist group and work out how best they might blow apart the cities of Colombia?
Both events can only make pro-agreement party negotiations due to take place over the coming weeks even more tense. Well, back to Pat Byrne saying tonight that decriminalising cannabis should now be considered in cases where there is a genuine medical need. Paul Reynolds reports.
The Garda Commissioner chose the uncharacteristic setting of Glenties in County Donegal to signal a change in the force's thinking on cannabis resin. Pat Byrne told the audience at the McGill's Summer School this evening that there is merit in considering whether there's a genuine medical use for cannabis or its derivatives. He stressed, however, that this was an issue for medical experts and only in the context of clinical trials beforehand.
What I'm saying is I have an open mind in relation to the use of cannabis for medical purposes. And what I'm saying, in essence, is that I think there is room for research and analysis by qualified people to see if the derivatives of cannabis could be used for medical purposes strictly under control.
But is this the thin end of the wedge? I mean, people might be concerned that the Garda Commissioner has come out and says, yes, we should even consider this matter.
Yes, I don't think it's too much saying we should consider it. You know, I think we're all adults, and if it's something that should be considered.
And this evening, the Minister with responsibility for drugs policy, Owen Ryan, said in Donegal that if medical authorities recommended the introduction of a cannabis-based drug, then he couldn't see the government opposing it. The Commissioner's comments this evening will no doubt surprise those who are in favour of legalising or decriminalising cannabis. But Pat Byrne is not saying that the Gardaí are in favour of this, and he does stress that decriminalisation will not put drug dealers out of business.
The baby food manufacturer SMA is recalling a small number of batches of its SMA Gold and SMA White infant food. It comes after a batch of SMA Gold was linked to a case of infant botulism in the UK. The child subsequently recovered. The batches involved have expiry dates of the 28th of October and the 28th of November of this year. The SMA Nutrition Care line is 1800 409 446. But now Susan Byrne has some of today's other main news.
A man has been charged with the murder of a Belfast man in Waterford City last night. Isuf Kritsi, originally from Kosovo, is charged with the murder of 44-year-old Thomas Macaulay from Ardoyne in Belfast. In Limerick, a 29-year-old man has appeared in court on a murder charge arising from a stabbing incident in the city yesterday morning. John McNamara from Crayville Park, Moyross, was charged with the murder of 24-year-old John O'Sullivan at Pineview Gardens in Moyross on Monday. The mother of the murdered Romanian man, Adrian Bastea, joined Gardaí today in a fresh appeal for information. The Gardaí acknowledged that some of his friends might be worried about coming forward because of their immigration status, but emphasised that their help is vital in solving this murder. The latest figures show daily listenership to RTE radio programmes has increased. The top 12 most listened to programmes in Ireland are on RTE radio. However, RTE's combined share has decreased by 2%. The JNLR and MRBI survey found that Morning Ireland was the most listened to programme, followed by the Jerry Ryan Show.
A search is underway for a fisherman who's feared drowned on the Guibara estuary in County Donegal. Bunbeg Coast Guard and the Arranmore lifeboat crew are also on the river near Guidor. The cap and rod of the man, who is in his 60s, were found earlier. Two other men who were fishing in the estuary at the time raised the alarm. 3 more people have died on the roads. A 24-year-old woman on a motorbike was killed in an accident in County Mayo this afternoon. The crash happened between Westport and Lewisburg. And in County Laois, 2 men from County Carlow were killed and a 3rd man seriously injured. The accident happened early this morning on the road from Portlaoise to Tullamore. Kieran Malooly reports.
This is the car that was bringing 2 Carlow men to their place of employment in Portlaoise just before 8 o'clock this morning. 28-year-old Ben Hennessy, a father of 1 from the Cloisters on the Tulla Road in Carlow, was travelling with 27-year-old PJ Culleton, a father of 2 from Crosby Place on Little Barrack Street in the town, when their vehicle was in a head-on collision with another car. The accident happened here at Naira, 3 miles from Mountmellick on the Tullamore to Portlaoise Road, one of the Midlands' busiest routes. The driver of the other car is in a stable condition in hospital. This accident was the 3rd tragedy on the roads to strike County Carlow in the last 2 months. 2 young men were killed in an accident in the County Westmeath town of Turles Pass in July, and another couple were tragically killed in a road accident in County Carlow. Today's fatality brings the total number of deaths on the road this year to 240. 415 people died in road traffic accidents in the year 2000.
We're going to break for sport in just a moment. After that, more of the day's news, including, is it a bird, is it a plane, the strange sight in the skies over Hawaii. First though, another strange sight. Here's Eamon.
Thanks very much, Sharon. Good evening to you. Well, it's Gaelic Games first, and Galway's team to take on Kilkenny in next Sunday's All-Ireland hurling semi-final has been named. Manager Noel Lane has selected pretty much the same lineup that demolished Derry in the All-Ireland quarter-final, but the tribesmen have left a vacancy at left corner forward. Darren O'Shaughnessy not included in the first 15 just yet, but that man there, Eugene Cloonan, is. Well, speaking of team news, Republic of Ireland soccer manager Mick McCarthy has named his team for tomorrow night's friendly against Croatia. Claire McNamara reports.
The Republic of Ireland trained at Lansdowne Road today in preparation for tomorrow's friendly against the Croats. Manager Mick McCarthy will give several new players a run, but one will be in from the start. The new cap is Stephen Reid of Millwall. He'll play on the right-hand side of midfield along with Roy Keane, Lee Carsley and Mark Kennedy. The back four are Gary Kelly, Richard Dunn, Steve Staunton, who wins a record 90th cap, and Ian Hart. Shay Given is between the posts, while Damien Duff and Robbie Keane are the up-front pairing.
I think I really need to start on a fairly solid base, and which I've tried to do, and I really want Stephen Reid to play with Gary Kelly, the more experienced player, rather than partnering with Stevie Finnan. There's a few: Stephen McPhail, Clinton Morrison, John O'Shea, Andy O'Brien perhaps. I'm going to try and give most of them a game, but throughout the match we'll try and see. I'll make a few changes at half-time.
The Croatian team has changed quite a bit since they reached the World Cup semi-finals in '98. New Aston Villa signing Bosko Balaban will start in their attack alongside Alan Bocic of Middlesbrough, with Chelsea's Mario Stanic part of a five-man midfield. Tomorrow night's game provides vital preparations for both sides' World Cup games. Croatia play Scotland in September on the same day that the Republic take on the Dutch.
Moving on to motorsport, and according to Jarno Trulli's manager, he has reached an agreement to remain at the Jordan Formula 1 team next season. Meanwhile, his teammate Jan Alesi, who was signed up for the Silverstone-based outfit for at least the next 5 races, was today meeting his new work colleagues. Alesi was given a first-hand tour of the garage by Eddie Jordan. The Irishman is, of course, hoping Alesi improves Jordan's season. Alesi's first drive in the EJ11 will be in this weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix. Athletics, and Russia's controversial 5,000 metres champion Olga Yegorova received a hero's welcome today after returning home from the World Athletics Championships in Edmonton, Canada. A jubilant crowd, including high-profile sports officials, media and fans, greeted Yegorova as she arrived at Moscow Airport. A 6-member Irish team will travel to Rome tomorrow for the World Formula Windsurfing Championships. Jim Fahey has more.
Today on Galway Bay, it was more like Windsborne Ballet than a final training session. But this weekend, this youth team will be taking on 14 nations in the World Championships.
We're going out to Italy to try and set a foundation for younger guys to go future years. And hopefully the government will recognise that we're going out there and will give us proper money.
To get to Rome, the team has had to raise £12,000 through a year-long fundraising drive. Now they have to beat massively sponsored international teams.
Going abroad to windsurf, going racing for your Irish team, going for Ireland, you know, it's one of the main best things you can actually do, you know, to kind of represent your country.
And that's all your sport for now. It's all yours, Sharon.
Thanks, Eamon. Next, John O'Driscoll has some of the day's main international news.
The Palestinian Authority has branded an Israeli attack on the West Bank city of Jenin as a declaration of war. It was the biggest incursion into Palestinian-held territory since the uprising began. The Islamic militant group Hamas has said it will launch more suicide bomb attacks in retaliation. Thai police will begin proceedings next month against 2 Irishmen accused of running a share scam that defrauded Australian and New Zealand investors of millions of pounds. John Keeley from Tipperary and Ronan Murray from Dublin were arrested in Bangkok last month following a raid on an unlicensed brokerage house. They've been charged with work permit violations, running an unlicensed trading house and fraud. In Macedonia, ethnic Albanian rebels have agreed to hand over their weapons to NATO soldiers. The breakthrough in the peace process came after the rebels were promised immunity from prosecution. 3,500 troops will now be deployed in the Republic to oversee the handover. Canadian scientists have managed to isolate stem cells from the skin of mice and humans. It's an alternative source for the cells, which are normally collected from discarded embryos, a practice which has led to calls for the research to be banned. The researchers have already succeeded in transforming skin from adult mice into nerve, fat and muscle cells.
Finally, Hawaiians had to do a double take when they saw an unusual aircraft in the sky over the island. Some may have thought it was a UFO, but not so. The strange machine was a NASA prototype which reached heights only ever attained by rockets in the past. Anthony Murnane has more.
This is Helios, an unpiloted solar-powered aircraft. There's no room for passengers. Indeed, it's little more than a flying wing, but it's already flown to more than 3 times the height of Mount Everest. The aircraft has a wingspan of 247 feet. That's wider than a Boeing 747, and it weighs less than many cars. Its 14 propellers are solar-powered by motors that consume about as much energy as a standard hairdryer. It's a bit of a slow mover. At takeoff, it's moving no faster than a bicycle. Its top speed, just 30 miles per hour. However, it more than makes up for its lack of sophistication and speed. During its 16-hour flight, Helios set 2 new world altitude records, soaring to 96,500 feet. NASA scientists believe aircraft like this could remain aloft for months and fly anywhere. The idea is that it could replace some satellites for a fraction of the cost.
It has a tremendous number of uses. When you can fly above all weather and above all other aircraft that fly, you have a continuous, stable platform that flies for months and years at a time, monitoring the atmosphere, monitoring pollution, monitoring the ocean, natural resources.
It may not be bringing one on a charter flight to the continent, but NASA is pleased with this latest addition fleet, and one day it might be used to send back information from space.
Now, before we go, the waiting is nearly over for the country's 60,000 Leaving Cert students. Their results will be available at schools around the country from tomorrow morning. For the first time, the Department of Education is providing results on this website. They won't be available until after midday, however, and students will need to know their exam and their PIN number, which they would have been given before sitting the leaving. The site is available on www.examinations.ie. If you're not near the net, you can call a special number. It's 1530 719 290. Again, have exam and PIN number handy. National Parents Council's exam helpline, staffed by qualified counsellors, will also open at midday. Their free phone there is 1800 265 165. And the very best of luck to everyone awaiting those results. We'll be back tomorrow night at 11:05. Join us then if you can.